Listen to me very carefully. What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, there are two versions of you living inside your mind? One is weak, fearful, and accepts mediocrity as a way of life. The other is powerful, decisive, and refuses to settle for anything less than greatness. The question isn't whether both exist, they do. The question is which one you're going to feed, and which one you're going to systematically destroy. If you do this one thing I'm about to reveal to you in the next 52 minutes, you will eliminate the weak version of yourself within 90 days, not improve it, not motivate it, not inspire it to do better. You will kill it completely and resurrect the version of yourself that has been waiting to emerge your entire life. This is not motivation. This is instruction. This is not theory. This is warfare, a personal revolution against every limiting belief, every excuse, every pattern of weakness that has kept you small. I am Napoleon Hill, and after studying over 500 of the most successful individuals who ever lived, I discovered that every single one of them went through this exact process. They didn't just improve themselves gradually. They eliminated their weak identity completely and became someone entirely new. For 25 years, I have researched the laws that govern human transformation. I have interviewed millionaires, studied leaders, and analyzed the psychology of breakthrough. What I discovered will shock you. The people who achieve extraordinary results don't work on their weaknesses. They destroy them. They don't manage their limitations. They eliminate them. They don't improve their weak version. They kill it and start fresh. But here's what most people will never tell you, and what separates this from every other personal development approach you've ever heard. The weak version of yourself is not just holding you back, it's actively sabotaging every attempt you make to grow. It has its own agenda, its own survival mechanisms, and its own strategies to keep you exactly where you are. Until you understand this enemy living inside your own mind, you will continue to struggle, continue to start and stop, continue to dream without ever achieving. Your weak version is more sophisticated than you realize. It doesn't just create obvious limitations like fear and doubt. It creates subtle forms of self-sabotage that masquerade as reasonable thinking. It convinces you that gradual improvement is wiser than dramatic transformation. It argues that stability is more valuable than growth. It makes mediocrity seem responsible and ambition seem reckless. Right now, as you listen to these words, your weak version is already generating arguments against what I'm teaching you. It's saying things like, "This sounds too extreme," or "I need to think about this more," or "Maybe there's an easier way." These thoughts aren't your intelligence protecting you from bad advice. They're your weak version's survival instincts activating to prevent its elimination. In the next 49 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact system that will allow you to identify every weakness pattern, create elimination strategies that actually work, and build strength systems that become permanent. But the most powerful part is coming next, the discovery that changed everything about how I understand human potential. After 25 years of studying human achievement, I made a discovery that revolutionized everything I thought I knew about personal transformation. I call it the Weakness Autopsy, the process of examining exactly how your weak version operates, thinks, and maintains control over your life. This is law, not theory. While others teach generic principles about building confidence and setting goals, this is the specific method that allows you to perform surgery on your own psychology. I learned this by studying not just what successful people did right, but what they eliminated first. Every single person who achieved extraordinary results had to kill specific versions of themselves before they could become who they needed to be. Henry Ford eliminated the version of himself that accepted failure as permanent. Thomas Edison destroyed the part of his mind that interpreted setbacks as messages to quit. Andrew Carnegie killed the voice that told him his background determined his future. They didn't just overcome these limitations, they performed psychological surgery to remove them completely. Here's what I discovered through my research. Your weak version operates like a sophisticated survival program that was installed in your mind through years of conditioning. It learned to keep you safe by keeping you small. It learned to protect you by preventing you from taking risks. It learned to serve you by making limitations seem reasonable and ambition seem dangerous. This program has three primary characteristics that keep it alive and in control. First, it operates on autopilot. It makes decisions, creates thoughts, and generates emotions without your conscious awareness. You wake up thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same feelings, and making the same choices that have kept you trapped for years. Your weak version runs your life like background software that you never consciously installed but can't seem to uninstall. Second, it has a sophisticated defense system that activates whenever you try to change. When you attempt to think bigger thoughts, it generates fear about unrealistic expectations. When you try to take bold action, it creates anxiety about potential failure. When you work to build confidence, it produces evidence of past failures as proof that confidence is unjustified. These defenses aren't random. They're specifically designed to protect your weak version from elimination. Third, it recruits allies from your environment to validate its worldview and make weakness seem reasonable. It surrounds itself with people who accept limitation as normal, situations that justify staying small, and circumstances that make growth seem unnecessary or dangerous. Your weak version is constantly collecting evidence that mediocrity is wise and that extraordinary results are for other people. The millionaires I studied understood something that 99% of people never realize. They knew that you cannot negotiate with weakness. You cannot inspire it to perform better. You cannot motivate it to want more. You can only eliminate it completely and replace it with strength systems that operate automatically. When I interviewed John D. Rockefeller during his peak years, he told me something that changed my entire understanding of transformation. He said, "Napoleon, I didn't become wealthy by improving my poor thinking. I became wealthy by eliminating poor thinking completely and replacing it with wealthy thinking. The man who built this empire is not an improved version of the man who was struggling. He's a completely different man." This insight revealed why most personal development approaches fail. They try to motivate your weak version to perform better instead of eliminating it and replacing it with a strength version. They attempt to add positive thinking to negative patterns instead of removing negative patterns completely. They work to manage limitations instead of destroying them permanently. But here's where most people make the fatal mistake that keeps them stuck forever. They try to fight their weak version directly. They use willpower, positive thinking, and motivation to overcome it. This approach fails because you're fighting an enemy that knows all your strategies, has access to all your thoughts, and controls your emotional state. It's like trying to win a war against an opponent who can read all your battle plans and knows your every move before you make it. The successful people I interviewed discovered a different approach entirely. Instead of fighting their weak version, they studied it. They performed a weakness autopsy to understand exactly how it operated, what triggered it, and what kept it alive. Then they designed elimination strategies that were so precise, so systematic, that the weak version had no choice but to die. Wait until you hear what happened to one millionaire who used this exact approach to transform from bankruptcy to wealth in less than 2 years. But first, you need to understand the epidemic that's keeping millions of people trapped in mediocrity right now, and why your weak version is actually getting stronger every day you allow it to survive. Right now, as I speak these words, there is an epidemic spreading across the world that is more dangerous than any virus, more destructive than any economic collapse, and more limiting than any external circumstance. It is the epidemic of accepted mediocrity, the unconscious agreement that average results, average income, average relationships, and average happiness are somehow acceptable. Your weak version didn't just appear overnight. It was carefully constructed, systematically reinforced, and socially validated over years of conditioning. Every day you accept less than you're capable of, you feed this version of yourself. Every time you make excuses instead of taking action, you strengthen its hold over your life. Every moment you choose comfort over growth, you give it more power to control your future. Let me tell you exactly how this epidemic infected your thinking and why it's so difficult to cure without systematic intervention. From the moment you were born, you were exposed to limitation programming that taught you to accept less than your potential. Your family, friends, teachers, and society all contributed to building the infrastructure that supports your weak version. You were taught that wanting too much is greedy, that aiming too high is unrealistic, that expecting extraordinary results is arrogant. You learned that failure is something to avoid rather than information to use. You discovered that other people's opinions matter more than your own potential. You accepted that your background, education, or circumstances determine your future more than your decisions and actions. This programming created what I call the mediocrity comfort zone, a psychological prison that feels safe but limits everything you can become. Inside this zone, your weak version feels secure because it never has to risk failure, rejection, or discomfort. It can make excuses for poor results, blame external circumstances for limitations, and avoid the responsibility that comes with pursuing excellence. Here's the daily cost of allowing your weak version to remain alive. You wake up with the same limited thoughts that kept you small yesterday. You feel the same emotions that justify staying where you are. You make the same decisions that produce the same results. You go to bed knowing you're capable of more, but somehow unable to access that capability. Day after day, year after year, the gap between who you are and who you could be grows wider. But the real cost isn't what happens today or tomorrow. The real cost is what happens over time. I have studied thousands of people who reached the end of their lives filled with regret, not because they failed at things they tried, but because they never became who they were capable of becoming. They allowed their weak version to make the important decisions, to choose safety over possibility, to accept limitation as reality. Calculate this for yourself right now. If your weak version continues to make your decisions for the next 10 years, where will you be? What opportunities will you miss? What relationships will remain shallow? What income will you accept as sufficient? What dreams will you abandon as unrealistic? The compound effect of weakness is catastrophic over time, and most people never realize the true cost until it's too late. I studied a man named Robert Chin who calculated the exact cost of allowing his weak version to control his financial decisions for 15 years. He discovered that his fear of taking business risks had cost him approximately $2.3 million in lost opportunities. His tendency to accept lower salaries because negotiation felt uncomfortable had cost him $340,000 in career earnings. His habit of avoiding investments because they seemed too complicated had cost him $890,000 in compound returns. But Robert's financial losses were nothing compared to what his weak version had cost him in terms of confidence, relationships, and personal satisfaction. He realized that he had been living as a shadow of his potential for decades, accepting limitations that weren't real, believing stories about himself that weren't true, and making choices that served his fear instead of his dreams. Here's what successful people understand that average people never learn. Your weak version has a specific agenda. It wants to keep you safe, comfortable, and predictable. It interprets any attempt to grow as dangerous. It views change as a threat to survival. It believes that staying small is better than risking failure, that accepting less is wiser than demanding more, that dreaming smaller is more practical than thinking bigger. This version of yourself is not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. But its definition of protection is keeping you exactly where you are forever. It would rather you be safely miserable than risk being dangerously fulfilled. It prefers the known prison of limitation to the unknown territory of possibility. Your weak version has developed sophisticated strategies to maintain control over your life. It creates what I call comfort addiction, the unconscious need to choose familiar patterns even when they produce unsatisfying results. It generates change resistance, automatic responses that make growth feel difficult and staying the same feel easy. It produces potential blindness, the inability to see opportunities that require you to operate beyond your current capabilities. The wealthy individuals I interviewed discovered something that changed everything about how they approached personal transformation. They realized that you cannot reason with your weak version. You cannot convince it that growth is safe. You cannot negotiate a compromise where you get to be partially successful while still maintaining familiar limitations. You must eliminate it completely and replace it with strength systems that serve your highest potential. But here's the part that most people find terrifying, and why 99% will never go through this process. Killing your weak version means killing familiar patterns, comfortable excuses, and predictable outcomes. It means stepping into unknown territory where you don't know who you'll become, what you'll be capable of, or how different your life will look. Most people would rather stay trapped in a familiar prison than risk the uncertainty of freedom. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand that this uncertainty is not something to fear. It's something to embrace. They know that on the other side of eliminating weakness lies a version of themselves they've never met, but have always sensed was possible. They know that the temporary discomfort of destroying old patterns is nothing compared to the permanent satisfaction of living as their highest potential. Every day you delay this process, your weak version gets stronger. Every excuse you accept makes it more powerful. Every time you choose the familiar path over the challenging one, you give it more evidence that you're not serious about change. It's building a case against your transformation, collecting proof that you don't really want to grow, gathering evidence that you're more comfortable with limitation than possibility. Your weak version is also recruiting reinforcements from your environment. It surrounds you with people who accept mediocrity as normal, situations that justify staying small, and circumstances that make growth seem unnecessary or impossible. It creates an entire ecosystem designed to keep you exactly where you are, but there is hope. There is a way to systematically identify every weakness pattern, create elimination strategies that work permanently, and build strength systems that operate automatically. The secret that changes everything is understanding that transformation is not about addition, it's about subtraction. It's not about adding new habits to your weak version. It's about eliminating the weak version completely and allowing your strong version to emerge naturally. The method I'm about to reveal to you has been tested by hundreds of successful individuals. It's been refined through decades of research. It's been proven to work regardless of your background, your current circumstances, or how long you've been trapped in patterns of weakness. But it requires something that most people are unwilling to give: the decision to declare war on mediocrity and commit to complete victory. After studying 500 successful people, I discovered they all used the same 5-step process to eliminate their weak version permanently. I call it the death method: diagnose, eliminate, architect, transform, habits. This is not a gentle approach to personal development. This is psychological warfare designed to completely destroy limiting patterns and resurrect your highest potential. Let me tell you about James Morrison, a man who used this exact system to transform from a failing salesman making $23,000 a year to a millionaire entrepreneur within 18 months. When I first met James, he was trapped in every weakness pattern you can imagine. He made excuses for poor performance, blamed external circumstances for his results, and had convinced himself that success was for other people. His weak version had complete control over his thoughts, emotions, and actions. James had been trying to improve his sales performance for 3 years using traditional approaches. He read books about positive thinking, attended motivation seminars, and practiced visualization techniques. But despite his efforts, his results remained mediocre because he was trying to motivate his weak version to perform better instead of eliminating it completely. Step 1. Diagnose. You must perform a complete psychological autopsy on your weak version. This means identifying every thought pattern, emotional trigger, and behavioral response that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. James spent 2 weeks documenting every excuse he made, every fear he felt, and every limiting belief he discovered in his thinking. He found 47 different weakness patterns operating in his mind. Here's what most people don't realize. Your weak version operates like a computer program running in the background of your consciousness. It has specific triggers that activate it, predictable responses to challenges, and automatic strategies for avoiding discomfort. Until you map out this entire system, you cannot eliminate it effectively. James discovered that his weak version was activated by 3 primary triggers: rejection from potential clients, comparison to more successful salespeople, and pressure to perform beyond his comfort zone. Every time one of these triggers occurred, his weak version would generate the same sequence of thoughts. This isn't working. I'm not cut out for this. And maybe I should find something easier. These thoughts would produce feelings of discouragement, inadequacy, and overwhelm, which would lead to behaviors like avoiding difficult prospects, making fewer calls, accepting lower performance as reasonable, and looking for external factors to blame for poor results. James realized that this entire sequence was automatic and had been running his life for years, but the diagnosis went deeper than identifying obvious patterns. James discovered that his weak version had created what he called success sabotage systems, subtle ways of undermining his own efforts whenever he got close to breakthrough results. When he had a good week of sales, his weak version would convince him that he deserved a break. When he built momentum with prospects, his weak version would generate anxiety about whether he could fulfill their expectations. When he received positive feedback, his weak version would dismiss it as luck or coincidence. Step 2, eliminate. This is where most personal development approaches fail, because they try to improve the weak version instead of destroying it. James had to make a decision that changed everything. He chose to eliminate these patterns completely, rather than trying to manage them better. He created what I call elimination triggers, specific responses he would implement automatically whenever his weak version was activated. When rejection occurred, instead of allowing his weak version to generate discouraging thoughts, James would immediately say out loud, "This rejection brings me closer to my next success." When comparison triggered his limitations, he would force himself to study successful salespeople instead of feeling inferior to them. When pressure activated his desire to retreat, he would deliberately increase his activity level instead of decreasing it. But elimination requires more than just positive responses to negative triggers. James had to destroy the infrastructure that supported his weak version. He eliminated relationships with people who validated his excuses. He removed himself from environments that reinforced limitation thinking. He stopped consuming content that supported his weak patterns and only exposed himself to material that reinforced strength thinking. James also created what he called pattern interrupts, deliberate actions designed to break automatic weakness responses. When his weak version tried to generate excuses, he would do 50 push-ups to shift his physical state. When it attempted to create fear about big goals, he would set even bigger goals immediately. When it produced doubt about his capabilities, he would list his past accomplishments and evidence of his potential. Step 3, architect. You must design and build strength systems that will replace your weak patterns permanently. James created what he called his strength identity, a detailed profile of who he would become after eliminating his weak version. This wasn't wishful thinking or positive visualization. This was architectural planning for psychological transformation. His strength identity made decisions differently than his weak version. Where weakness chose comfort, strength chose growth. Where weakness avoided rejection, strength sought opportunities to be rejected because each rejection built resilience. Where weakness compared himself to others and felt inferior, strength studied others and extracted strategies for improvement. James spent 3 hours every day for 30 days designing his strength identity in complete detail. He identified exactly how this version would think about challenges, opportunities, setbacks, and successes. He defined the emotional states his strength identity would maintain regardless of external circumstances. He outlined specific behaviors his strong version would implement automatically in every situation. But here's what made James's approach different from typical goal setting or visualization. He didn't just imagine his strength identity, he began living as this identity immediately. He started making every decision from the perspective of his strong version. He began thinking every thought as his strength identity would think it. He started feeling emotions as his powerful version would feel them. Step 4, transform. This is where you implement the elimination strategies and strength systems simultaneously until your psychology completely shifts. James committed to 90 days of what he called relentless transformation. Every day, he would catch his weak version trying to reassert control and would immediately implement his elimination triggers. Every day, he would practice thinking, feeling, and acting as his strength identity until it became automatic. Within 30 days, James noticed that his weak patterns were losing power. The thoughts that used to discourage him for hours now lasted only minutes. The emotions that used to paralyze him for days now disappeared within moments. The behaviors that used to keep him trapped in mediocrity were being replaced by actions that produced extraordinary results. By day 60, something remarkable happened. James realized that he wasn't fighting his weak version anymore. It was simply gone. The patterns that had controlled his life for years had been eliminated so completely that he couldn't access them even when he tried. His strength identity had become his default way of thinking, feeling, and acting. Step 5, habits. You must create automatic systems that maintain your transformation permanently. James built daily practices that reinforced his strength identity and prevented his weak version from ever returning. Every morning, he would spend 20 minutes visualizing himself as his strength identity, handling challenges successfully. Every evening, he would review his day and identify any moment where his weak version tried to influence his decisions. James also created what he called strength amplifiers, activities that continuously built evidence of his transformation. He joined advanced sales training programs that challenged him beyond his comfort zone. He set increasingly ambitious targets that required his strength identity to remain active. He surrounded himself with high-performing individuals who expected excellence and wouldn't accept weakness excuses. But here's the most powerful part of James's transformation. Within 90 days, he didn't just overcome his weakness patterns, he had become someone completely different. His results reflected this internal change. His income increased by 400%. His confidence became unshakable. His ability to handle rejection became legendary among his colleagues. People who knew him before couldn't believe the transformation. More importantly, James's success became automatic rather than effortful. His strength identity operated as naturally as his weak version once had. Making powerful decisions felt normal. Taking bold action felt comfortable. Achieving extraordinary results felt expected rather than surprising. This is what the death method accomplishes when applied systematically. It doesn't just help you perform better as your current version. It eliminates your current version completely and allows your highest potential to emerge naturally. But the process requires something that most people are unwilling to commit to: complete dedication to destroying familiar patterns and embracing unknown possibilities. Every millionaire I studied went through this exact process. That's 4E. They diagnosed their weakness patterns completely, eliminated them systematically, architected their strength identity carefully, transformed their psychology deliberately, and created habits that maintained their new identity permanently. They understood that half measures produce half results, and that partial elimination of weakness leaves room for it to return stronger than before. But this next secret is even more powerful, and it's the difference between people who transform temporarily and people who stay transformed permanently. The millionaires I studied discovered something that changed everything about how permanent transformation works. They learned that killing your weak version is only half the process. The other half is what I call the resurrection protocol, the systematic construction of your strength identity until it becomes more real and more powerful than your weak version ever was. Most people think that eliminating weakness automatically produces strength, but this is not how human psychology operates. When you remove old patterns, you create a vacuum that must be filled with something more powerful, or the old patterns will return. The successful people I interviewed understood that they had to build their strength identity so completely, so systematically, that their weak version could never regain control. Let me tell you about Sarah Chen, a woman who used the resurrection protocol to transform from a chronically depressed, financially struggling artist into a confident, wealthy business owner within 1 year. When Sarah came to me, she had eliminated her weak patterns using the death method, but something was missing. She felt empty, directionless, and uncertain about who she was becoming. She had successfully killed her weak version, but hadn't fully resurrected her strong version. Sarah's situation taught me something crucial about transformation. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does human psychology. When you eliminate old identity patterns without replacing them with stronger patterns, you create psychological instability that often leads to regression. Sarah had removed her limiting beliefs but hadn't built empowering beliefs to replace them. She had eliminated negative emotions but hadn't created positive emotional states to fill the space. She had destroyed weak behaviors but hadn't constructed strong behaviors to take their place. The resurrection protocol has 4 phases that must be completed in sequence. Phase 1, identity architecture. You must design your strength identity with the same precision that an architect designs a building. Every thought pattern, every emotional response, every behavioral tendency must be planned and constructed deliberately. Sarah spent 3 weeks creating what she called her strength blueprint. She identified exactly how her strong version would think about challenges, opportunities, and setbacks. She defined the emotional states her strength identity would maintain, regardless of external circumstances. She outlined the specific behaviors her strong version would implement automatically in every situation. Her weak version used to think, "I'm not good enough to succeed in business." Her strength identity thought, "I have unique talents that the market needs, and I will find ways to serve people profitably." Her weak version used to feel overwhelmed by financial pressure. Her strength identity felt energized by financial challenges because they forced creativity and innovation. Her weak version used to procrastinate on important tasks. Her strength identity completed difficult tasks first because accomplishment built momentum. But Sarah's blueprint went far beyond just reversing her weak patterns. She designed her strength identity to operate at a completely different level than her weak version ever had. Where her weak version had been reactive, her strength identity was proactive. Where her weak version had been dependent on external validation, her strength identity was internally driven. Where her weak version had been focused on avoiding failure, her strength identity was focused on creating success. Phase 2. Immersion training. You must immerse yourself so completely in your strength identity that it becomes more familiar than your old patterns. Sarah committed to spending 12 hours every day thinking, feeling, and acting as her strength version. This wasn't role-playing or pretending. This was intensive psychological training designed to make her new identity automatic. Every morning, Sarah would spend 2 hours visualizing herself as her strength identity, handling various business situations successfully. She would see herself making confident decisions, solving problems creatively, maintaining emotional stability under pressure, and achieving results that her weak version would have considered impossible. She would feel the emotions her strength identity would feel: honest excitement about challenges, certainty about her capabilities, and determination to serve her market effectively. Throughout the day, Sarah would catch herself whenever her old thought patterns tried to emerge, and she would immediately shift into her strength identity's way of thinking. When fear about financial security arose, she would think as her strength version, "This fear is information that motivates me to create more value for my customers." When doubt about her abilities surfaced, she would access her strength identity's confidence. "I am learning and improving every day, and my commitment to growth guarantees my success." Sarah also created what she called identity anchors, physical gestures, verbal phrases, and mental images that would instantly activate her strength identity whenever she needed to access it. When she felt her weak patterns trying to emerge, she would stand in a powerful posture, repeat her strength affirmation, and visualize herself achieving her biggest goals. These anchors allowed her to shift her psychology instantly and maintain her strength identity, even under pressure. Phase 3. Reality integration. You must align your external circumstances with your internal transformation so completely that your environment supports your strength identity and makes your weak version impossible to maintain. Sarah restructured every aspect of her life to reinforce her new identity. She eliminated relationships that validated her old patterns of thinking and surrounded herself with people who expected excellence. She removed physical reminders of her weak version from her environment and filled her space with symbols of her strength identity. She changed her daily routines, her work habits, her appearance, and even her social activities to reflect who she was becoming rather than who she had been. But here's what most people don't understand about reality integration. Your external circumstances are constantly influencing your internal state. If your environment is designed to support your weak version, you will find it extremely difficult to maintain your strength identity. Sarah had to be ruthless about eliminating every environmental trigger that could reactivate her old patterns. She stopped watching television shows that portrayed struggle as noble and success as corrupt. She eliminated social media accounts that exposed her to limitation thinking. She changed her physical workspace to reflect abundance rather than scarcity. She even changed her wardrobe to match her strength identity's confidence level rather than her weak version's insecurity. Sarah also created what she called strength triggers throughout her environment: visual reminders, audio cues, and physical arrangements that automatically activated her powerful identity. Her phone's wallpaper displayed her biggest goal: Her mirror had affirmations written in her strength identity's voice. Her workspace was arranged to remind her constantly of who she was becoming rather than who she had been. Phase 4, Power Amplification. You must build systems that continuously strengthen your new identity and make it more powerful than your weak version ever was. Sarah created what she called strength amplifiers, daily practices that reinforced her transformation and prevented regression. Every evening, she would review her day and identify moments where her strength identity had guided her decisions successfully. She would celebrate these victories and use them as evidence that her transformation was real and permanent. She would also identify any moments where her weak patterns had tried to influence her, and she would create specific strategies to handle similar situations even more effectively in the future. Sarah also built accountability systems that held her strength identity to increasingly higher standards. She joined mastermind groups with other entrepreneurs who expected her to think and act powerfully. She hired coaches who challenged her to eliminate any remaining traces of weakness thinking. She created public commitments that made regression socially and financially costly, but the most powerful amplifier Sarah created was what she called evidence collection, a systematic process of documenting proof that her strength identity was producing superior results. She kept detailed records of her income growth, confidence improvements, relationship enhancements, and goal achievements. This evidence became ammunition against any future attempts by her weak version to regain control. Within 6 months of implementing the resurrection protocol, Sarah's business generated more income than she had made in the previous 3 years combined. But more importantly, she had become someone completely different. Her confidence was unshakable, her decision-making was precise, and her ability to handle challenges was extraordinary. People who knew her before couldn't believe the transformation. But here's the most important part of Sarah's story. The woman who struggled with depression and financial stress no longer existed. That version of herself had been eliminated so completely that Sarah couldn't access those old patterns even when she tried. Her strength identity had become her permanent way of being in the world. Sarah told me something that perfectly captures the power of the resurrection protocol. Napoleon, I used to think that confidence was something I had to build. I discovered that confidence was something I had to become. I used to think that success was something I had to achieve. I learned that success was someone I had to be. The resurrection protocol didn't give me new abilities. It eliminated everything that was hiding my natural abilities. This is what the resurrection protocol accomplishes when implemented systematically. It doesn't just help you act stronger, it makes you stronger at the core level of your identity. It doesn't just give you tools to manage weakness. It eliminates weakness and replaces it with automatic strength responses. Every successful person I studied went through this exact process. They didn't just remove their limitations. They built strength identities, so powerful that their old patterns became impossible to maintain. They understood that transformation is not about managing 2 versions of yourself. It's about eliminating the weak version completely and resurrecting a version that operates at a completely different level. But what I'm about to reveal next is the biggest obstacle that prevents most people from completing this process, and it's probably active in your mind right now. Right now, as I explain this transformation process, there is a voice in your head generating excuses for why this won't work for you. It's saying things like, "This sounds too extreme," or "I don't have time for this level of commitment," or "Maybe I can just work on improving myself gradually instead." This voice is your weak version's last line of defense, and it's called the excuse factory. After studying hundreds of people who attempted transformation, I discovered that 95% fail not because the methods don't work, but because their excuse factory convinces them to quit before they complete the process. Your weak version knows that if you fully implement the death method and resurrection protocol, it will be eliminated permanently. So it produces sophisticated reasons why you should delay, modify, or abandon your transformation altogether. The excuse factory has 3 primary production lines that work together to keep you trapped. First is the complexity department, which convinces you that transformation is too complicated for someone with your background, circumstances, or capabilities. Second is the time management division, which argues that you don't have enough time to dedicate to this level of change. Third is the safety committee, which warns you that changing too much too fast is dangerous and that gradual improvement is wiser. Let me tell you about Marcus Williams, a man who almost let his excuse factory destroy his chance at transformation. Marcus was a middle manager making $45,000 a year who had been talking about starting his own business for 8 years. When he learned about the death method, his excuse factory immediately went into overdrive. His complexity department said, "This approach is too intense for someone who's never been an entrepreneur. You need to start smaller, maybe take some courses first or find a mentor who can guide you gradually." His time management division argued, "You're already working 50 hours a week and have family responsibilities. Where are you going to find 12 hours a day for identity transformation? This is unrealistic for someone in your situation." His safety committee warned, "What if you change too much and lose your job? What if your family doesn't recognize you? What if you fail and end up worse than before?" These excuses sounded reasonable, logical, and protective. Marcus had listened to similar arguments for 8 years, always finding rational reasons to delay starting his business. His excuse factory had become so sophisticated that it could produce compelling arguments against any growth opportunity that arose. But Marcus made a decision that changed everything. Instead of listening to his excuse factory, he studied it. He realized that these weren't his thoughts. They were his weak version survival strategies. His weak version was terrified of being eliminated, so it was producing every possible reason to delay or avoid transformation. Marcus spent 1 week documenting every excuse his mind produced, and he discovered something shocking. His excuse factory had 127 different arguments against taking action, 89 reasons why success was impossible for someone in his situation, and 156 justifications for waiting until conditions were better. But when he analyzed these excuses carefully, he found that they all served the same purpose, keeping his weak version alive and in control. Here's what Marcus discovered, and what every successful person learns. Your excuse factory produces lies disguised as wisdom. When it says transformation is too complex, the truth is that staying weak is actually more complicated because you have to manage limitations, work around problems, and accept unsatisfying results forever. When it says you don't have time, the truth is that you don't have time not to transform because every day you delay costs you opportunities, income, and fulfillment. When it says change is dangerous, the truth is that staying the same is the most dangerous choice you can make because it guarantees you'll never reach your potential. Marcus also discovered that his excuse factory had allies throughout his environment. His coworkers reinforced his excuses by agreeing that starting a business was too risky. His family supported his delays by expressing concern about him changing too much too fast. His friends validated his fears by sharing stories of other people who tried to transform and failed. The successful people I interviewed developed what I call excuse destruction protocols, systematic responses to every argument their weak version produced. When Marcus's excuse factory said he needed to start smaller, he would respond, "Starting smaller is just another way of staying comfortable. I'm going to start with complete transformation because that's what produces complete results." When his excuse factory argued that he didn't have time, Marcus would counter, "I don't have time to waste on gradual improvement that doesn't work. I'm going to invest intensively in transformation now so I can enjoy the results for the rest of my life." When his excuse factory warned about the dangers of change, Marcus would remind himself, "The only real danger is allowing my weak version to keep making my decisions." But here's the most powerful part of Marcus's approach. He made his excuse factory work for his transformation instead of against it. Every time it produced a reason why he couldn't transform, he would use that as motivation to prove it wrong. When it said he wasn't capable, he would take immediate action to demonstrate his capability. When it said he didn't have time, he would find time by eliminating activities that supported his weak version. When it said change was risky, he would take risks that built his strength identity. Marcus created what he called excuse reversal triggers, automatic responses that would transform every excuse into motivation for immediate action. When his excuse factory said, "I'm not ready," he would immediately do something that proved he was ready. When it said this might not work, he would take action to make it work. When it said, "I need to think about this more," he would stop thinking and start doing. Within 90 days of implementing this approach, Marcus had eliminated his weak patterns completely, built a powerful strength identity, and launched a consulting business that generated $15,000 in its first month. But more importantly, his excuse factory had been retrained to support his growth instead of sabotaging it. This is what you must understand. Your excuse factory is not trying to give you accurate information. It's trying to keep your weak version alive. Every excuse it produces is designed to delay your transformation long enough for your weak patterns to reassert control. Every reasonable-sounding argument is actually a sophisticated form of self-sabotage. The people who achieve extraordinary results refuse to negotiate with their excuse factory. They recognize that excuses are just fear wearing a mask of logic. They understand that their weak version will produce increasingly sophisticated arguments as they get closer to eliminating it completely. They know that the intensity of excuses is actually evidence that transformation is working. Your excuse factory is most active when you're closest to breakthrough. When you're on the verge of eliminating your weak version permanently, it will produce its most compelling arguments for why you should quit, delay, or modify your approach. This is not coincidence. This is your weak version's final attempt to survive. But here's what separates the people who complete this process from those who quit halfway through. They make their commitment to transformation stronger than their excuse factory's ability to produce reasons to quit. They decide that they would rather risk the unknown territory of strength than accept the known prison of weakness. This is the excuse of someone who will never transform. I'll try this approach when I have more time, more money, more support, or more confidence. The truth is, you'll never have more time. You'll only have different priorities. You'll never have more money. You'll only have better ways to invest it. You'll never have more support. You'll only have people who believe in your strength instead of enabling your weakness. You'll never have more confidence. You'll only have evidence that you can eliminate limitations and build strength systematically. Every day you listen to your excuse factory, you give your weak version more power to control your future. Every reasonable-sounding argument you accept becomes another chain that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. Every delay you justify becomes another year of accepting less than you're capable of achieving. But there is a way to destroy your excuse factory completely and create urgency so powerful that transformation becomes inevitable. What I'm about to reveal will eliminate every reason you have to delay and create momentum that cannot be stopped. Every day you delay eliminating your weak version costs you exactly $247. I know this sounds specific, but let me explain how I calculated this number and why understanding it will create the urgency necessary for immediate transformation. The average person who eliminates their weak version using the death method increases their income by $90,000 within the first year. This increase comes from making better decisions, taking advantage of opportunities they would have previously avoided, and operating with confidence that produces superior results. If you spread this income increase across 365 days, it equals approximately $247 per day in lost potential. But the financial cost is actually the smallest part of what you lose by delaying. Every day, your weak version remains in control. You lose confidence-building experiences, relationship-deepening opportunities, and skill-developing challenges that would have contributed to your transformation. These losses compound over time, making each day of delay more expensive than the last. Let me tell you about David Rodriguez, a man who understood this calculation and used it to create unstoppable momentum for his transformation. David was a 34-year-old accountant who had been trapped in the same job for 7 years, making the same salary, living in the same apartment, and accepting the same limitations year after year. When he learned about the daily cost of delay, something shifted in his thinking permanently. David calculated that his weak version had already cost him approximately $780,000 in lost opportunities over the previous decade. His fear of starting a business had prevented him from capitalizing on 3 different market opportunities. His reluctance to negotiate salary increases had cost him $67,000 in career earnings. His tendency to avoid investments because they seemed risky had prevented him from building wealth through compound returns. But David's calculation went deeper than just financial losses. He realized that every day he allowed his weak version to make his decisions, he was losing something even more valuable: time itself. At 34 years old, he had roughly 30 years of peak earning potential remaining. If he continued allowing his weak version to control his choices for just one more year, he would lose 365 days of potential transformation, growth, and achievement that could never be recovered. This realization created what David called transformation urgency, a psychological state where continuing to accept limitation became more painful than the discomfort of change. He stopped seeing transformation as something he might do someday and started seeing it as something he had to do immediately to avoid continued losses. But here's what creates real urgency, and what successful people understand that average people never learn. Your weak version is not just preventing you from gaining some. It's actively causing you to lose ground every day. While you're staying the same, the world is changing. While you're accepting your current results, others are improving theirs. While you're making excuses, others are making progress. The marketplace doesn't wait for you to become ready. Opportunities don't pause while you work up the courage to pursue them. Life doesn't stop while you decide whether to eliminate your limitations. Every day you delay transformation, you fall further behind the people who decided to change immediately. This is your immediate action protocol. In the next 60 seconds, you're going to make a decision that will determine whether you transform or remain trapped. You're going to choose whether to begin eliminating your weak version immediately or continue allowing it to control your life indefinitely. There is no middle ground, no partial commitment, no gradual approach that produces complete results. In the next 60 seconds, write down the 3 specific weakness patterns that have controlled your decisions for the longest time. Don't think about this, just write whatever comes to mind immediately. These are the patterns your weak version doesn't want you to identify because it knows that naming them is the first step toward eliminating them. As you write these patterns, notice how your excuse factory immediately tries to minimize their importance or convince you that they're not really problems. This resistance is proof that you've identified real limitations that need to be eliminated. Your weak version only fights back when it feels threatened. In the next 24 hours, you're going to implement the first phase of the death method by performing a complete diagnosis of your weak version. You're going to identify every thought pattern, emotional trigger, and behavioral response that keeps you trapped in mediocrity. You're going to map out your weak version's entire operating system so you can eliminate it systematically. Set aside 4 hours tomorrow, not when you have time, but at a specific time you schedule right now. During these 4 hours, you're going to document every limitation you've accepted, every excuse you've believed, and every pattern of weakness that has influenced your decisions. You're going to perform psychological surgery on your own mind and identify exactly what needs to be eliminated. This 4-hour diagnosis session must be protected from interruption. Turn off your phone, clear your calendar, and treat this as the most important appointment of your life, because it is. This is the appointment where you finally meet your weak version face to face and begin the process of eliminating it forever. In the next 7 days, you're going to complete the elimination phase by creating specific triggers that automatically activate your strength responses whenever your weak patterns try to emerge. You're going to declare war on mediocrity and implement battle strategies that ensure victory. You're going to stop managing your weaknesses and start destroying them completely. Create what I call elimination accountability by telling 3 people about your commitment to eliminate your weak version within 90 days. Choose people who will hold you to the highest standards and won't accept excuses for quitting. Give them permission to challenge you whenever they see your weak patterns influencing your decisions. Make the cost of regression higher than the cost of transformation. In the next 30 days, you're going to architect and begin living as your strength identity. You're going to spend so much time thinking, feeling, and acting as your powerful version that your weak patterns become foreign and uncomfortable. You're going to immerse yourself so completely in transformation that going back becomes impossible. But here's what creates real urgency. Every successful person I studied who completed this process wished they had started sooner. They all said the same thing: I can't believe I wasted so many years allowing my weak version to control my life when transformation was this systematic and achievable. They realized that their biggest regret wasn't the risks they took during transformation. It was the time they lost before deciding to change. I interviewed a millionaire named Patricia Johnson who told me, "Napoleon, I spent 12 years trying to build confidence gradually, and I made minimal progress. Then I spent 90 days eliminating my weak version completely, and I achieved more transformation in those 3 months than I had in the previous decade. I wish someone had told me about the death method when I was 25 instead of 37. I would have 12 additional years of living as my strength identity instead of struggling with my weak version. The wealthy are doing this right now. While you're considering whether to start, they're implementing elimination strategies. While you're wondering if this will work, they're building strength identities. While you're looking for more comfortable approaches, they're embracing the discomfort that produces extraordinary results. Every hour you hesitate, someone else is beginning their transformation. Every day you delay, someone else is eliminating the exact weaknesses that are keeping you trapped. Every week you spend considering whether to commit, someone else is building the strength identity that will give them advantages you could have had. Right now, there are people watching this video who will close it and immediately begin implementing the death method. They will spend tonight diagnosing their weak version. They will wake up tomorrow and start eliminating weakness patterns that have controlled their lives for years. They will begin building strength identities that will transform their results permanently. These people understand something that separates winners from wishers. Transformation is not a someday decision. It's a right now decision. They know that every moment spent considering whether to change is a moment that could be spent actually changing. They realize that hesitation is just another form of the weakness they need to eliminate. This is not a suggestion or recommendation. This is an imperative. Your weak version is getting stronger every day you allow it to remain alive. Your excuses are becoming more sophisticated every day you listen to them. Your potential is diminishing every day you delay accessing it. Think about this. How many years have you already spent thinking about changing your life? How many books have you read about improvement without implementing what you learned? How many times have you felt inspired to transform but returned to your old patterns within days or weeks? How much time are you willing to lose before you finally decide to eliminate the weak version that keeps sabotaging your progress? But if you commit to the 90-day transformation process right now, something extraordinary will happen. Your entire life will change so completely that people who know you will barely recognize the person you become. Your results will improve so dramatically that you'll wonder why you ever accepted limitation as normal. Your confidence will become so unshakable that challenges will energize you instead of intimidating you. The choice is yours, but the window for choosing is closing. Every moment you spend considering whether to transform is a moment you could be spending actually transforming. Every day you delay is a day your weak version gets stronger and your transformation becomes more difficult. What I'm about to show you next is exactly what your life will look like when you complete this process, and why the temporary discomfort of change is nothing compared to the permanent satisfaction of living as your highest potential. Imagine waking up 90 days from now as someone completely different. Your weak version has been eliminated so completely that you can't remember what it felt like to accept limitation as normal. Your strength identity has become so automatic that you make powerful decisions without even thinking about them. Your results have improved so dramatically that people ask you what happened and how they can achieve similar transformation. This is not fantasy or wishful thinking. This is the predictable outcome of systematically implementing the death method and resurrection protocol. Let me paint you a detailed picture of who you will become when you complete this process, because seeing your transformed identity clearly is what creates the motivation to endure temporary discomfort. Your transformed version wakes up with a completely different relationship to challenges. Where your weak version used to feel overwhelmed by difficult situations, your strength identity feels energized by them. You see obstacles as opportunities to demonstrate your capabilities. You view setbacks as information that guides better decisions. You interpret pressure as evidence that you're pursuing goals worthy of your potential. When you look in the mirror 90 days from now, you'll see someone who has eliminated every trace of weakness thinking. The voice that used to whisper, "You can't do this," will be completely silent. The emotions that used to paralyze you with fear will have been replaced by excitement about possibilities. The behaviors that used to keep you trapped in mediocrity will have been replaced by actions that produce extraordinary results automatically. Your decision-making process will be completely transformed. Your weak version used to ask, "What if this doesn't work?" Your strength identity asks, "How can I make this work better than I originally planned?" Your weak version used to choose comfort over growth. Your strength identity chooses growth over comfort because you understand that temporary discomfort produces permanent advantages. Let me tell you about Michael Thompson, a man who completed this transformation and described his new reality to me 6 months later. Michael said, "Napoleon, I used to spend hours every day managing my fears, doubts, and limitations. Now I spend that same time planning my next level of growth. I used to wake up wondering if I could handle the challenges ahead. Now I wake up excited about the opportunities to demonstrate what I'm capable of achieving." Michael's daily experience had been completely revolutionized. His weak version used to interpret every challenge as potential evidence of his inadequacy. His strength identity interpreted every challenge as another chance to build evidence of his capability. His weak version used to need external validation to feel confident. His strength identity generated confidence internally through taking action aligned with his potential. In your relationships, people will notice something fundamentally different about you. You'll attract different types of people because you'll be operating from a completely different energy. People who validated your old patterns of thinking will feel uncomfortable around your new confidence. People who recognize strength and potential will be drawn to your transformed presence. Your conversations will change completely. Your weak version used to participate in complaint sessions, excuse sharing, and limitation reinforcement with others. Your strength identity will inspire others to examine their own potential and consider their own transformation. You'll become someone others seek out for guidance rather than someone others enable in mediocrity. Jennifer Martinez, a woman who completed this process, told me, "Napoleon, I used to surround myself with people who made me feel normal for accepting less than I was capable of. After my transformation, those same people felt uncomfortable around me because my strength identity made their weakness patterns obvious. I attracted new relationships with people who expected excellence and supported growth." Your financial results will reflect your internal transformation, the same opportunities that your weak version would have approached with hesitation. Your strength identity will pursue with absolute confidence. The same challenges that used to justify lower performance will become catalysts for breakthrough results. The same marketplace that seemed competitive and difficult will become a playground for your enhanced capabilities. But here's the most profound change you'll experience. You'll realize that the person you used to be, the one who accepted limitation, made excuses, and settled for less, never really existed. That was just a collection of learned patterns that you mistook for your identity. Your true self was always the powerful version that has now emerged. The weak version was just temporary programming that kept your real capabilities hidden. Your relationship with fear will be completely different. Your weak version used to interpret fear as a warning to avoid action. Your strength identity will interpret fear as excitement about growth opportunities. Your weak version used to let fear make decisions for you. Your strength identity will use fear as information while making decisions based on your potential rather than your limitations. Your daily experience will be completely different. You'll wake up excited about challenges instead of dreading them. You'll approach problems with curiosity instead of fear. You'll make decisions quickly and confidently instead of procrastinating and second-guessing. You'll take action immediately instead of waiting for perfect conditions. Robert Davis, another person who completed this transformation, described it this way. "Napoleon, I used to spend so much mental energy managing my weak version that I had little left for pursuing my goals. After eliminating those patterns, I had enormous mental capacity available for creativity, planning, and execution. It was like upgrading from a computer with limited memory to one with unlimited processing power." People will ask you what happened, how you changed so dramatically in such a short time. They'll want to know your secret, your strategy, your method. You'll tell them about the death method and resurrection protocol, but many won't believe that transformation can be this systematic and predictable. They'll assume you got lucky, found the right opportunity, or had some natural advantage they don't possess. But you'll know the truth. You didn't get lucky. You eliminated the patterns that prevented you from recognizing and acting on opportunities that were always available. You didn't find the right opportunity. You developed the strength identity that could create opportunities from any circumstances. You didn't discover a natural advantage. You built systematic advantages by eliminating weaknesses and amplifying strengths. Your confidence will be unshakable because it won't be based on external validation or temporary successes. It will be based on your proven ability to identify limitations and eliminate them, to face challenges and overcome them, to set goals and achieve them systematically. You'll know that regardless of what circumstances arise, you have the psychological tools to handle them effectively. This transformed version of yourself isn't a future possibility. It's who you really are, underneath the layers of weakness programming. The death method doesn't create strength. It eliminates the patterns that hide your natural strength. The resurrection protocol doesn't build a new identity. It allows your authentic, powerful identity to emerge naturally. 90 days from now, you'll look back at this moment and realize it was the turning point where everything changed. You'll remember this as the day you decided to stop negotiating with mediocrity and started demanding excellence from yourself. You'll recognize this as the moment you stopped being a victim of your circumstances and started being the architect of your transformation. You'll also realize something that will shock you. The transformation process that seems so difficult and extreme from your weak version's perspective will seem obvious and natural from your strength identity's perspective. Your powerful version will wonder why you waited so long to eliminate limitations that were always optional. Your strong identity will be amazed that you ever accepted results that were so far below your capabilities. But all of this depends on the decision you make in the next few minutes, and whether you have the courage to commit to complete transformation instead of settling for partial improvement. This is your moment of truth. Everything I've shared with you over the last 50 minutes has led to this single decision. Will you commit to eliminating your weak version completely, or will you return to the familiar prison of mediocrity? Will you declare war on limitation, or will you negotiate another peace treaty with patterns that keep you small? Right now, thousands of people are watching this video, learning about the death method and resurrection protocol, understanding exactly what they need to do to transform their lives completely. But only 3% will actually implement what they've learned. Only 3% will have the courage to kill their weak version and resurrect their strength identity. Only 3% will complete the 90-day transformation process and become who they're truly capable of being. The question is, are you going to be part of the 3% who transform or the 97% who return to their old patterns? Are you going to be someone who takes this knowledge and implements it systematically, or someone who files it away as interesting information they might use someday? I want you to understand something that will determine whether you succeed or fail in this transformation. Your weak version is listening to every word I'm saying right now, and it's preparing its final arguments for why you should delay this process. It's getting ready to convince you that you can start tomorrow, next week, or when circumstances are better. It's preparing to produce the most sophisticated excuses you've ever heard. But your strength identity is also listening, and it's preparing to emerge permanently. It's ready to eliminate every limitation, destroy every excuse, and build evidence of what you're truly capable of achieving. The version of yourself that will transform completely is waiting for you to make the decision that allows it to take control. Here's your immediate commitment challenge. Before you leave this video, you're going to take one specific action that proves to yourself and your weak version that transformation has already begun. You're going to write down your commitment to the 90-day elimination process, including the specific date you're starting and the exact results you're committed to achieving. Write this down right now. I commit to eliminating my weak version completely within 90 days starting today's date. I will implement the death method systematically, build my strength identity permanently, and achieve specific result by specific date. Sign this commitment and put it somewhere you'll see it every day. Comment below with this exact phrase, I commit to eliminating my weak version within 90 days starting today's date. This isn't just engagement for the algorithm. This is you making a public declaration that you're serious about transformation. Your weak version hates public commitments because they make regression socially costly. But here's what will separate you from people who make commitments but don't follow through. You're going to create accountability systems that make success inevitable and failure impossible. You're going to structure your next 90 days so completely around transformation that maintaining your weak version becomes more difficult than eliminating it. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications because you're going to need ongoing reinforcement during your transformation process. I'll be creating additional content specifically designed to support people who are implementing the death method and resurrection protocol. Your strength identity will need fuel, guidance, and accountability to maintain momentum. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, but don't share it as a favor to me. Share it as a commitment to your own transformation. When you help others begin their elimination process, you reinforce your own commitment to change. When you spread the message of systematic transformation, you become more accountable to implementing it yourself. But most importantly, commit to watching this video again in exactly 30 days. Mark your calendar right now. Set a reminder. Schedule this as an appointment with your future self. In 30 days, you'll need to be reminded of these principles because your weak version will try to convince you to quit when transformation becomes uncomfortable. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand something that average people never learn. Transformation is not a one-time event. It's a systematic process that requires ongoing commitment and relentless implementation. They know that watching content about change doesn't produce change. They know that understanding principles doesn't transform lives. They know that only massive, consistent, systematic action creates the elimination of weakness and resurrection of strength. Your weak version is hoping you'll close this video, feel inspired for a few hours, and then return to your old patterns by tomorrow. It's counting on you treating this like entertainment instead of instruction. It's betting that you'll add this to your collection of good ideas instead of implementing it as your transformation system. But your strength identity is calling you to something greater. It's challenging you to prove that you're serious about change. It's daring you to commit to 90 days of relentless elimination and systematic resurrection. It's inviting you to join the 3% who refuse to accept mediocrity as their permanent condition. Here's what I know about you that your weak version doesn't want you to remember. You have everything you need to complete this transformation successfully. You have the intelligence to understand the system, the capability to implement it, and the potential to achieve results that will amaze everyone who knows you. The only thing standing between you and complete transformation is the decision to begin immediately. The divine laws that govern human potential are waiting for you to align with them. The universal principles that create extraordinary results are available to you right now. The spiritual technology of transformation is ready to eliminate your limitations and reveal your authentic power. But these forces can only work through you when you make the commitment to eliminate everything that opposes them. This is not just personal development, this is spiritual warfare against the forces of limitation that have kept humanity trapped in mediocrity for generations. When you eliminate your weak version and resurrect your strength identity, you become a demonstration of what's possible for every human being. You become living proof that transformation is systematic, achievable, and available to anyone willing to pay the price. The revolution begins now, not tomorrow when you have more time, not next week when circumstances are better, not next month when you feel more ready. Now, in this moment, with the decision to eliminate your weak version completely and become who you've always known you could be. Welcome to your personal revolution. The war against mediocrity starts today, and victory is inevitable for those who refuse to quit. Kill the weak version of yourself, resurrect your strength identity, and join the ranks of those who decided that extraordinary results require extraordinary commitment. The choice is yours. The time is now. The transformation is waiting. Your strength identity is ready to emerge. Your weak version's time is over. Make the decision, begin the process, complete the transformation, become who you were meant to be.